you so much for joining me, Rasika. It was lovely to see you in Kartavya. I thought it's such a difficult movie to do because it's a very grim subject, and yet it is hopeful, but only towards the end. But your character was both so soft and so courageous, so strong. It was both. You showed so much love, for the younger brother, for your husband, for your child, and yet so strong in her conviction and her moral compass. So, a very difficult, soft, strong, a combination to play. But of course, you're so good at everything you do. So,
Thank you.
congratulations! And it was a lovely film. It was so meaningful. So that's how I wanted to start, Rasika, because it's so good to see someone like you who's really stuck to her convictions, stuck to her, political beliefs, social beliefs, and what the world should be like, and yet do so well. It's very rare. So congratulations again. So talk about where you're at in your work these days.
Thank you so much for watching the film and for that very lovely feedback. I am always interested to play women whose stories probably don't get considered as the ones that are supposed to be told, and that is always exciting to me, even if the screen time is not as much as I would have liked it to be. And of course, that is with Pulkit's intention to do so, because otherwise you can't do anything with your desires for a character if your director doesn't share the same desires as you. So that was very clear to me from the time that he approached me for the role, that he sort of wanted to give it some attention, wanted to I think give the women who we see in our lives always, who actually, like you said, who manage to be soft and strong and courageous and sensitive and empathetic all at the same time, which is something that I've always taken for granted in my childhood. And I always say that when I realized my feminism more accurately than I did earlier, I sort of felt like, I hadn't been grateful enough for that. And this is probably, doing roles like this is probably my way of saying thank you. But yes, that's the reason why roles like this are attractive. Um, as far as where I am in my career is such a difficult question to answer, because I always feel that you're so, as an actor, things are so different in your head as they might appear outside, and it's always very heartening to hear from somebody that you feel like I've aligned with all my beliefs. I always feel like every day is a negotiation between me and what I thought earlier, which is simultaneously a good thing and something to watch out for, because I feel that if you're constantly questioning these things and renegotiating them with yourself, that means you're reinventing yourself in some way, and there's some change happening around you which you are a part of, but at the same time, these are very difficult things to navigate, because you feel like, am I selling my soul? Am
Yeah.
I sort of going away from what the reasons why I started out in this career? Am I not being true to those anymore? Or, I mean, the world has changed and you have to change with the world, So those are questions that I have no clear answers to, but I guess that's the journey of an artist anyway, or an actor anyway, that you never have answers to these.
Right. And Rasika, you've also had such a long apprenticeship studying the craft and studying social issues as well, through LSR and through Sophia and then FTI. And, hanging out and learning from such brilliant people and such great teachers, as I'm sure you did. And that worldview must be deeply embedded in you now. And as you said, for you to keep negotiating, because the world is so different from what we thought it was. So for that negotiation is something that I'm interested in. I wonder, how do you manage that? Because at the same time, the work that you're doing is pretty much, I think, what you started out wanting to do, which is quite amazing.
Um, you're right. Like that time of my life, even if I want to move away from it, it does not go away,
Yeah.
And I'm grateful for that, because I think that those experiences are very valuable and have served me very well as an actor. I used to also, in between Sophia's and FTI, I was a research assistant, and I worked
Oh,
on a
where?
couple. Sorry.
Where were you a research assistant?
I actually worked with on two different research projects, on academic research projects at that time. One happened to be with the Nobel laureate Dr. Abhijit Banerjee
Wow.
and Dr. Rohini Pandey, who
Oh, yeah, she's
uh,
at Harvard, right?
sorry.
She's at Harvard, I think, Rohini
At that
Pandey.
time, she was at Yale. I'm not sure where she's
Oh,
now. Um,
right.
I haven't been in touch with her actually. I should reconnect at some
Yeah.
point. And the other was with this lovely organization called Pukar, which was called Partners for Urban Knowledge Action and Research, which was based in Bombay. And I worked on their project on gender and public space. And funnily enough, by the time the project got over, I had already gone to FTI, studied acting, and come back. And I actually read a piece on the launch of their book called Why Loiter, which
Oh,
was
that's Shilpa Phatke, right?
that's right.
Why
That's Shilpa
loiter?
Patke,
Wow. Yeah,
Samira Khan, and Shilpa Ranade.
right.
So I worked with as a research assistant with
Wow.
them. So I think a lot of what I learned then has informed my work in a very beautiful way. As part of the Gender and Public Space project, I used to stand at railway platforms and observe men and women. How they navigate public space, whether public amenities are equal for men and women or not, and that kind of ethnographic study, so to say. And I mean, and in one sense, an acting job is similar,
Yeah,
right?
you're observing.
You're observing. So it's funny how different things in your life. Uh,
What did
uh,
you do for Dr. Banerjee and Dr. Pandey?
they were working on a project in UP at that time. I had just finished from Sapphires, and I really didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. I was, but enthusiastic enough and curious enough to sort of take on anything that seemed exciting and caught your fancy, and you would try and make something of it. So I got an email from somebody who then forwarded it to somebody else, and then finally it came to me, which said that they were looking for a research assistant to collect secondary research data material for their project, which was a very quantitative project. So it was different from the one that I did with Pukar. But basically, they needed people who could get into government organizations and get the data required. And I sort of looked very not suspicious and looked like a college student, which I kind of was at that time. And I kind of managed to say, sir, please, आप मुझे library का access दे दीजिए. So miraculously, I managed to do some nice, good work with them, and they were very
That was you
appreciative.
preparing to be Neeti Singh, I think.
Maybe,
Yeah,
maybe. And I sort of looked very unsuspicious and
yeah.
very innocent. And they were like, हाँ हाँ चलो चलो आपका college project होगा. So I actually I got several days at the Vidhan Sabha library in Lucknow. I got access to some documents in the PWD basement, which nobody had opened for years. I remember I
Wow.
got these 2, 3 other people, and we wore masks at a time when masks were not
Yeah.
normal, because there was so much dust.
Right.
And that room hadn't been opened for years. So three of us sort of went in, and they wouldn't allow us to take the material outside, but we kind of noted whatever we needed to do. uh,
That seems much more exciting than your film work, actually.
Oh, no, because uh, just being an actor is like, it never stops, right?
Yeah,
You can go anywhere, and you can do all of these things and more.
yeah,
And
that's
then you
true.
get to present it in a form which is not so obvious, right? So you get to do some masti with the
Yeah,
material.
some magic,
How
some
much to
alchemy.
how
Yeah,
much to hide, how much to
yeah.
show, how much to keep, how much to um, uh, experience fully, how much to add from your own life, all of that. So that work is just, I think, unmatchable and beautiful.
Yeah. So how wonderful. So really, in a way, you have been, that long apprenticeship was really an apprenticeship. You were, in a way, working towards what you finally became, unknowingly.
Unknowingly, totally unknowingly.
Yeah. So great. So talk about being in a movie like Kartavya, which is, which really highlights everything that is wrong with our world right now. And when Saif says that, the new generation needs a khula asman to fly, they want to fly. I mean, it's so poignant, you really feel that. Talk about what you felt going into the movie and what you felt after it.
Um, when I was given the script of the film first, I have to say I was very impressed because all of it was written in Hindi. In the
Oh,
sense that most often films, scripts that come to you, the dialogue is written in Hindi, of course, because that's
yeah.
what you'll speak in. But most often it's written in Roman. This was written in Devanagari. But the directions were also written in Hindi. So it
Oh,
almost read like a beautiful Hindi short
short
novel,
story.
you know. And Pulkit had written it very lyrically also. The directions were written very lyrically. I actually love reading screenplay because some people write screenplay very lyrically, and it actually gives you an impression uh, uh, of what they're thinking and how imaginative they can be. So it's very beautiful to have that. So I really found that very interesting about the script. ऐसे चलो बहुत टाइम बाद ऐसा कुछ मिला है जो पूरा ही हिंदी में है, and
Right.
at least you can you know that the director has a strong hold over language, and is also sort of thinking lyrically and literally. So
So give me an example, like when he would set up a scene, he would describe it in its whole, or how.
Well, he would do exactly what the quality that I love in directors like him, like Pulkit and Gurmeet, for example, from Mirzapur, where they
Yes.
give you exact. I mean, different directors have different styles, but what I really like about some directors is they know how much you need to know and how much you don't need to know. So they don't over explain the moment such that it's talked away, and they don't over explain an emotion such that it's talked away, because any given moment in any film is an experience, and it's not unidimensional, it's not one single emotion, and the moment you articulate it in a particular way, it tends to become unidimensional, so you have to sort of be careful of that. And at the same time, it's not like they didn't give you enough information that you didn't know what to do. So I found that balance very comfortable to work with, and I really feel like that's one of the first signs of a good collaboration. And I sort of really look for that in directors, especially when you're dealing with material which is sensitive, which
Yeah.
is also very internal, which is about moral dilemmas, internal conflicts, and how people sort of find their way around situations which can potentially be very desperate and very urgent. So I thought that was a very it would be a good collaboration, and I was right. I was also, I have to admit, very interested in working with Seth.
Yes.
I had heard that he's one of the best stars to work with, and that was absolutely true. It was he's a very giving co-actor and very sort of not taking himself too seriously, and
Seriously.
it's so disarming. He really makes you feel that you know more than somebody like him who's worked for over 30 years and has had such a glorious career.
Yeah.
So those were my two excitements to do this film.
And what I loved, Rasika, is the delicacy of the things that you don't say. For instance, that scene where you're indicating to Seth that he should give his father the cup of tea. It's just a glance, but it's so beautifully done. Rather than that dialogue that whatever, but just that little thing. So I think moments like that are so lovely for an actor. Do you create them? Are they there? How does that work?
Actually, they're not created more often than not, they're not created consciously.
Yeah.
It's something that happens, but it's really for the director to pick it and say, okay, this worked. Can we repeat it in the next shot also? Can we keep it around in the next shot? Just to sort of let you know that something that you did
Has been welcome.
intuitively
Yeah.
worked for the scene, and that you should retain it if you can, as we shoot the scene. There's another moment actually which I find very interesting, and there are I don't know if an audience notes it or not, because more often than not, I always feel like things that I note, audiences don't note. But on the other hand, the things that I didn't note, they do.
They pick
So,
up.
so it's a win-win situation in that sense. But absolutely in the last scene where he comes back, and uh, she doesn't really know
Yeah.
what he did. But we had done a couple of takes of that where he leaves the frame, and I don't know, just intuitively, I kind of looked down as if to check if I can hear the father-in-law or not.
Right.
Did he
Right.
also come back or did he
Right.
not? So that every
That's
time I watch
true.
that, I feel
Yeah.
really kicked as an actor,
Yeah. That's true.
because I feel like that I hadn't thought of that, and that just happened, and it's such a nice thing to sort of happen. But honestly, I feel that as actors, this is not something to really feel. So I'm kind of wary of feeling happy about it also, because I don't want to have marked these so consciously, because then the possibility of them happening organically, I think, reduces more and more.
And so much must be happening organically while a scene is being played out. Something that you do unconsciously. You even if you'd rehearse the lines, you didn't know you were going to do that. It must be happening a lot of times.
Almost always, because the way I like to work is I never rehearse the lines of the scene in the way that I'm going to speak them. I actually just learn the lines flat, you know, without emotion, because I want to leave it to the moment and to what my co-actor is giving me and what the director requires of me, so that I'm able to respond to that truly at that time. But having said that, that doesn't mean you don't do any other work around it. I mean, you will only be able to add some value to it if you've sort of equipped yourself with enough to put yourself in the world, so that while you're on shoot, you can put yourself truly in that moment, is the best way that I can describe it. I mean, just to give another example, uh, I had done a film called Hamid many years ago,
Yeah, yeah, of course, of course.
and uh, I mean, I didn't really know how to begin to prepare for that film, because it was I felt like it was almost rude of me to think that I could play somebody who's lived in a conflict zone for
Yeah,
so long,
Kashmir, right.
and I had in fact even told them to cast somebody from Kashmir for the film, because I said, I don't think in the time that we have and the resources that we have, I can really begin to understand what somebody who lives in whose husband is quote unquote missing.
Missing.
I don't know whether I can get into that, and I don't want to do any disservice to this narrative that then already seems to have been done to it in mainstream media very often. So I don't want to go there. And they finally convinced me, and I said, okay, let me try and put in my best. And the best way that I could do, I mean, that I could hope to do something with that was, I spent 2 weeks sitting with the women of the village, and just sort of spending time with them, not really knowing what from here is going to find its way into the film, or what from here is something that I've been able to imbibe, because I don't believe that these things are very conscious. They have to be subliminal for them to be magical in any way. And there was a scene in Hamid where, you know, like she's supposed to be doing something else when somebody comes to meet her about something to do with money. And because I had spent enough time with the women in the village, I decided that I knew that in the afternoons they often clean a sag called hak. I don't know.
Hawk. Yeah, yeah. I'm a Kashmiri,
Oh
I
yeah,
know.
of course. I forgot. So they clean
Yeah,
hak,
yeah, yeah.
and and so I said, okay, let me just sit and clean hak. And they were like, yeah, okay. So I
Yeah.
mean, those things don't
Those
happen
are the things. Yeah.
unless you've
And
spent
yeah,
enough
and I
time.
remember you telling me that even for Neeti, you'd actually shadowed a young probationer for a
Yes,
couple of weeks,
yes,
just to get an understanding of how they behave.
and I still continue to shadow her.
Oh, you do?
Yes,
Oh,
it's such a beautiful story.
right.
I wish I'd thought of it,
It
thought
could
it
have been a
through.
great documentary.
Exactly. I think of it every season, but now it's too late.
Yeah.
And in fact, when I went to meet her in the second season, she was also ACP and I was also ACP.
Yeah.
Neeti was also promoted to
Lovely.
ACP and she was. And that time she was posted in Chandigarh. And I said, yeah, it's not Delhi, but still let me get the sense of how an ACP functions, And so that was lovely. And then when I went to meet her in season 3, she was posted in Arunachal because it's the same cadre.
Agmod Kader.
Admiral. And and she was in a very different sort of a role. But I still thought, it's almost like my pilgrimage every season.
Yeah.
I should go and meet her. And I spent some time with her. She was the principal of a police training academy.
Oh,
So I
okay.
went to Arunachal and I spent some time with her. But then I felt like I had missed my Thana sort of time, where I sort of really need to be in a Thana for 4 days before I start shooting for Delhi Crime, because otherwise I kind of lose. I can't fit myself in that world again, till I sort of do that. So I went to Delhi to meet her. She connected me to another police
Oh,
officer who
right.
was ACP in Delhi at that time. Also happened to be from LSR, which was lovely.
How nice.
Yeah, so beautiful. So, you have these experiences, which is just priceless, I think, as an
Yeah.
actor.
The joy of being an actor, slipping into so many different skins and
Really. And now with the police officer who I shadowed from season 1, um, now I feel like a connection with her, which
yeah.
is so special, right? Because I've seen her grow as an officer. I've seen
I
how
wish
she.
you could recreate those moments with her. I'm sure there's a way to do it. I think you should think about it. How lovely it'll be,
Yeah.
Rasika at work. And Mirzapur, talk a little about getting into the skin of our Chinese food loving woman. That scene, when you have that sound, I think I'll always be sort of haunted by it. It's such a typical thing that we do, but you don't normally see it on screen. It's one of those
Yeah, actually.
little magical things.
Yeah, actually, I've always noticed that you don't see people doing clumsy things on screen
Yeah,
very often. And very often when you see that, it's made such a meal of that you don't really want to see it. So like somebody cleaning their nose, for lack of a better example,
yeah, yeah.
or somebody just sneezing or just making sounds like that, which are just so. So I
But
love
it's
that.
so vital, it's it just connects you.
In, in
It's
fact, there was a scene in season 2 in which I'm pregnant.
uh
And Pankaj's character, Akhandanand, is talking to Isha's character, Madhuri. Huh? They are having a conversation in the room,
yeah.
and they're not involving me in the conversation. And I have nothing to say in that scene. I'm just there. I'm listening. Because from a story point of view,
Yeah.
it's important that I have that information. So I was like, how should I make this scene more interesting? Because she's also somebody who doesn't like the fact that she's not included in this
Yeah,
conversation.
she wants to be the star of her own
She
show.
wants to be included in this conversation. And as women, we have enough experience of not being included in
Yeah.
conversations. We know that situation too well, all too well. So I decided that because she was also pregnant, I thought there's this candy called Pulse.
Ah,
Hmm?
of course.
Which I love. Huh?
Yeah.
So I said,
You also love it. It has many. My husband loves it.
Henna,
It's so disgusting.
it's disgusting. It's disgusting for the other person. But I was
Yeah,
actually,
yeah, that's right.
I was
I remember
actually
that.
shooting for Out of Love season 2. No, season 1 and Mirzapur at the same time.
Right.
So I was shooting in Ooty and coming back and shooting in Bombay and then going back. And if you've been to Ooty, Kunur, those roads are very winding.
Yeah,
So Pulse really helps because
actually, for the
it doesn't make you sick. So I was anyway having that those days a lot. and and I decided to include it in the scene. I asked Gurmeet, I said, can I chuso that loudly at times when I want attention?
But how lovely, it's...
And Pankaj was totally on board. He loved the idea, and he said, बहुत अच्छा idea, बहुत अच्छा idea. So we went with it, and so there's a scene where I'm like, suddenly when the conversation becomes something that I want them to note that I'm there, I start chusoing it really loudly.
How lovely. These are the little secrets that all of you carry, and they're little sweet little weapons in your armory.
Yes.
But otherwise, I was just thinking that the industry has changed. It's not. I mean, some of the fun stuff that we saw happening earlier, like things like Delhi Crime. I mean, it's great that it's continuing, but we're not seeing things like that afresh. We're still sort of on the back of Delhi Crime, Mirzapur. These are franchises that were created 4 or 5 years ago. There's been nothing so terrific of late, I feel, that has really captured our imaginations. Streaming is sort of little dull now, no?
It has changed since the first few years for sure. And the promise of the first few years was huge, right? You
Amazing.
really felt that even if you made something independently, it would find a way to reach people, which was the most exciting thing to me, which is what happened with Delhi Crime, right? We had made it without a platform on board.
Nothing. You had no clue it would become the phenomenon it was.
Absolutely not. In fact, like when I was approached for it, it was almost like, we don't have the budgets, we don't have anything, but it's a great script. And would you do it? And there are great actors attached to it. And that, who knew that? And sometimes I think that, this could have been one of those things that you could have just missed. And that would have been my biggest regret in my life, I think. But so the promise that you could create something entirely because you wanted to tell that story, and then there would be a place which would where you would find a home and that would take you to an audience, was the promise in the initial years, and it was huge for an actor like me. I felt that was great. That uncommissioned work, finding a place somewhere, is difficult in today's time, and that for me has been the I think the saddest thing, because I also started my career with so many independent films,
and such lovely iconic movies.
Yeah, and I felt like finally this is the answer to the lack of distribution for smaller films. But that promise didn't hold for too long, and now it's mostly commissioned things which are commissioned by platforms. And but I have to say, in that there's the good and the bad also. I mean, the fact that they've continued shows which have promise over seasons. There is Patal Lok, which is fairly newer than Delhi Crime. There is Kohra. There is Family Man. All of that. I think, but yes, there is a clutter. There is the good and bad. And earlier, if you would get a show from offer from an OTT, you were convinced that the content would be really sort of exciting. Now, no, and sometimes you have to read 8 episodes to find out you don't want to do it.
Right.
So that is happening, but I'm not feeling utterly despondent about the situation. I feel like there is a mix, and you have to find the correct stories for yourself, and hope that there's not too much competition for people to get to that, and you get an opportunity to do it.
No, also, but now you're one of the most recognizable faces of entertainment in India. I don't think there's any doubt about that. So some things automatically must be coming to you. For you, it must be a thing of saying no rather than yes.
I mean, there's always a gap between what you get and what you want, and that I think is something that I've learned to live with. And I think that's a good thing, because that means that you are trying and striving for something more than is coming to you easily. So I mean, I've made some good decisions and bad decisions also. I mean, there are shows that I've said no to, which turned out to be pretty decent, and I was like, wrong decision, wrong judgment. But there have been things that I said no to, which I'm like, thank God, Acha hua. There are things that I've wanted which I haven't got. because people who were casting at that time had another sort of thing in mind for that role. And that always happens, right? I mean, directors have a vision.
Yeah.
You might not fit into that vision at that point, and it's not a function of how much work you've done or how good you are. It's just the question of a fit sometimes, and that you have to accept as a performer. So yeah, those disappointments and those joys are there, and that's a constant uh, thing in the line of work. I mean, right now I'm sounding very zen about it, but then, of course, when you're
There
going,
must be times when you do feel despondent.
no, there are times when you're like, oh my God, have I made the correct decisions or
Yeah.
not? Because there are sometimes you've made decisions which, I mean, Delhi Crime, for example, or Mirzapur, for example, at the time that these were beginning, they were not
You couldn't
anything.
have imagined that they would become such phenomenon.
Yeah, in fact, when I
Phenomenal.
met Karan Anshuman for
Yeah.
Mirzapur, and at that time I was shooting for Manto. I had been cast in Manto,
Yeah.
and Karan was a friend of mine, and somebody told me that he's making this show, and why don't you approach him? And I said, no, he's a friend. He'll ask me if there's anything for me. I don't know if I should make it awkward for him in case he doesn't want to cast me. And when I met him, he said, of course, I want to. I just thought that you're doing a film opposite Nawaz and you wouldn't want to do this. And I was like, no. Because at that time, it was, we used to call it web series.
Yeah.
And it hadn't really taken off. The streaming platforms hadn't
Yeah.
really taken off the way they did a couple of years later. So yeah, I mean, the fact that you made decisions which were not looked at that time as the most lucrative or the best decisions to make turned out so well that you wonder what when you're making decisions. That's very
Yeah. 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 But are you also creating your own work like you did? I think the banana bread one is so cute.
I think it would be a missed opportunity if you don't in a
Yeah.
time at a time like this. And really, and sometimes as actors, you don't always get the kind of material that you're looking for. So if you have an opportunity to create it, you should do that. And I feel like I should. I, Fortunately or unfortunately, I mean, I haven't been able to take out that much time to be able to really focus on that, because that requires time and there's an opportunity cost to that. So you have to give up something to make that happen. And I know enough actors who are doing that as well, actors who are friends who are sort of disappointed with what they're being offered, and they're trying to create material. It happens so often in the West also. You look at
Yeah.
actors whose names are there on shows as executive producers for this reason. But nothing concrete to speak about yet. But hopefully, I'm able to find a discipline to give that enough attention.
But how do you remain so cool and happy every time, or at least you look it?
My husband would disagree.
But he seems to be very zen also, so it's a good match.
Uh, I mean, that's the thing. Sometimes we laugh because it's like sometimes we're both going through the same kind of stress.
Kind, yeah, yeah.
And then it becomes sort of hard to be there for each other because then you're sort of compounding each other's
Yes.
problems. But on the other hand, sometimes when you're going through something and the other person has been through that, they just get it totally and completely, and they exactly know what you want to hear and what you don't want to hear at times like that. And it's also very comforting to have somebody who has sort of been through that kind of thing around you, so that you can sort of just listen to their experiences. So yeah, it's a little bit of both. So we try and manage that in
Yeah,
whatever
I
we
think
can.
touch wood. I think managed beautifully. So what else? What else are you doing? Can you talk about anything else that you're doing? I
Uh,
know Mirzapur you've shot obviously already, and
yes, actually, that's the only thing that I can talk about
yeah,
because the
but you
rest
are
is
there.
very initial. But yes, it was exciting to be a part of
Yeah,
a series which is being made into a film.
yeah. How exciting!
Yeah, that's the first time it's happening in India, at least,
Yeah.
um, and in the West also there are not too many examples of
No.
that. But and I think the other way around has happened.
Yeah,
films getting made
films
into
getting made into series.
series. So I'm happy that I'm
My
getting.
favorite is Brideshead Revisited.
Sorry?
Brideshead Revisited, much before your time.
Acha, I have not watched it.
Yeah, yeah. It's very English. It's
Acha.
England
Oh,
war.
I like those though.
Yeah. So, so there is other work that's happening, or you're shooting for right now, or you can't talk about it.
One that I'm in prep for.
Great.
And
It's
I think,
exciting.
huh?
Is it exciting?
Very exciting. And there's also, I think, I always need my indie film every year.
Yeah, yeah.
So I always do at least one indie film, an indie project, which comes my way. And with indie projects, it's always a risk because, most often directors are new. And and that's very refreshing also. And but at the same time, you're taking a chance, right? You don't know, you've not seen any work from before, and you it could go either way. But I always do one every year at least because it makes me feel at home.
One for the soul and one for the bank
So
balance.
I hope that the other stuff I'm doing is also
It's
for the
also for
soul.
the soul.
But the soulless ones I've managed to say no to. Some
Yeah,
I've regretted also because they've turned out to not look
no,
soulless.
but I think sleeping well at night is a priority for anyone who has a conscience, right?
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
that's very important.
that
There's so
is.
much happening around the world. I think adding
Yeah.
to the hatred and adding to the trauma of people is not something you want to do as an artist, right?
That definitely not, but also oversimplifying something
Yeah.
is a problem, I mean, that is something that is not exciting enough. I mean, as an
Although
actor.
everyone seems to want that.
Yeah. I don't know actually. The thing is, I have huge faith in audiences. I feel that people are complex enough and intelligent enough to understand something that you've done well. I don't believe you have to oversimplify it. But the fact is that when oversimplified things get made, people do appreciate it. It's not that they have a problem with it. But it's just not work that excites me.
Yeah.
Why should I say something through a story which can be said through a lecture?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I would like to use the opportunity of bringing more nuance to it than that.
So lovely to speak to you, Rasika. It's a joy to watch you on screen, and it's lovely to speak to you as well. And I wish you all the best